Welcome to ALP Corner, Family Law in the heart of Houston.
Hello and welcome to ALP Corner, Family Law in the heart of Houston with Allecia L. Pottinger, CEO of ALP Law Firm. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is Prenups and Postnups, Unpacking Myths and Legal Essentials in Texas. Allecia, great to see you again.
I love it. Thanks for having me. This is my wheelhouse.
Oh, this is your wheelhouse. All right,
This is
cool.
my wheelhouse. Family law is my wheelhouse, and I always enjoy dealing with topics that deal with family law.
Well, you know a lot about it. That is one thing I've learned very quickly doing this podcast with you. So we're going to talk prenups and postnups here. Can you start by talking about what some of the common misconceptions couples have about prenups are and how you address them?
Okay, yes. The biggest that I find is that both parties need representation. They can't come to an attorney and say, let's draft up these prenup agreements, because what could happen when you get to the down the aisle and down the road a bit, all of a sudden it's not working and the prenup comes up and they said, oh, I did this under duress. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand. And so it's always best that each party has counsel. And I personally won't do it unless the other party has counsel, because what you will find is that you have some roadblocks further down the line, and they'll feel like they were scammed or what have you. But that's the first thing. The other thing that people need to know about prenup agreement is that you have to disclose your assets and your liabilities. Non-disclosure and not full disclosure could cost you down the line. Okay, though that not disclosed. And the third misconception that I find a lot is that although you have a prenup agreement, there are some rights that you have to only be given away by a spouse. For example, a retirement benefit, anything that covered by ERISA, which is a federal statute, anything covered by that, the spouse is the only party that can give up that right. And so even if you have it in your prenup agreement, once you get married, you have to come back and do another postnup agreement regarding giving up those benefits when it comes to retirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought up the postnup, because we've all heard prenup before. Everybody knows what that is. Obviously, we can use context clues to figure out what postnup is, but in what situations would you need a postnup? Is it just more modifications, or is it something you can get even if you don't have a prenup?
You can get it even if you don't have a prenup. The issue is sometimes parties, I hate to say it, but we'll look around, they're trying to avoid creditors. And there may be a big windfall that's coming. The parties get, in every situation, you will find one party is a spender and one is a saver. And when those two don't match, then at that particular point, they want to have a postnup agreement.
Okay.
And you will find that couples these days, for some reason, keep their financials separated anyway. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of putting that to paper, how they actually are living their life. So in that particular situation, they'll put money into an account and everybody else keeps, your money is your money, my money is my money. And that helps keep the issue of finding out later that even your paycheck is community property.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people feel like, I worked for that. This is my money. And it's like, nope, it's the community's money, not
the
just
household.
your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Both my wife and I are spenders, which is not good for our wallets, but great for our relationship. Great. Yeah. We get along
I'm
great.
sure somebody in there is more so a saver than the other.
I'll get back to you next episode.
Yes.
I have to think about that one. I have heard people in family law say that they believe every couple should have a prenup. Do you agree with that?
Well, bit of disclosure. I don't have one.
Neither do I.
but I do recommend it. And I have said, it might be beneficial for some parties to stay together because one party may not want to lose the other party and don't want to lose the benefits that come with the marriage. And so, therefore, it's cheaper to keep them. So, bottom line, it really depends on the person. Most of the time, when I see prenup agreements, it's because somebody has a significant amount of wealth or financial resources that they're trying to preserve further down the line. And they have children, that are, we'll say older couples that have children that are now grown and want or going to inherit. And it's a way to protect the children too. I mean, you could do it by will, but it's also a way to protect the children.
Can you walk us through the legal requirements for creating a valid prenuptial or postnuptial agreement in Texas?
So the first thing is that you have to have full disclosure. The other thing is that once you have that full disclosure, you cannot be under duress. And let me give you a prime example of duress. And this this has come up many times. All of a sudden, the other party says, I want a prenup. Well, it's 1 week before the wedding. What do you think the other person is going to do, especially if they paid out a significant amount of money for this wedding? They're going to sign on a dotted line. That is considered duress. It can't be based on fraud. And fraud is typically when those assets are not disclosed or there's liabilities that are not disclosed, and that could be considered fraudulent. That it's not entered into, one party may be what we would call not have the mental capacity to end up signing off on a contract. That's another thing. So we have those in place. It follows even though we're in family law, the postnup and the prenup agreement is going to follow the contract principles. And that contract principles, normally you have to give some form of consideration for having agreement. Offer acceptance and some form of consideration. Well, when you deal with a prenup, you don't have to give any consideration. It's just that you have to disclose what your assets and your liabilities are and have a good understanding of what rights you're giving up and what rights you're receiving as a result of the prenup agreement.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to a prenup, but peace of mind for couples entering into a marriage can be something that it can really help the beginnings of a marriage.
Absolutely. I think so, but it all depends on what you have that you need to protect.
Right.
It's a
Right.
protection mechanism.
I mean, it's an uncomfortable conversation, I mean, or it can be an uncomfortable conversation. There's
Yeah.
jokes and TV shows and movies and stuff about prenups and things like that. So we kind of have a preconceived notion that it means I don't trust you or
Right.
something like that. Is that how do you think people can kind of get past that sort of misconception?
Well, again, sometimes it's a matter of protecting the other spouse. Look, I have these creditors. I don't want you to end up having to take on this, these liabilities that I
Yeah.
have. And so I'm doing this in order to protect you. I
Yeah.
mean, how can you argue with that? Like, oh, that's so sweet of you, let me sign on a dotted line, that type of thing. But outside of that, it really is a matter of what a person's choice is. And I say that because sometimes it comes with the baggage of having a marriage that where one party got taken to the cleaners.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's like, I don't want to go through that and start from scratch if something happens. And I get it.
Totally. Yeah.
But, normally your normal couple that starting off, especially your younger couples, if they don't have any assets that they're trying to protect, it's no reason to have a prenup other than to say, it's all about what your lifestyle choices are. If you want to manage your finances and your life as a separate entity and only come together for certain expenses, then a prenup might be something that is for you. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of how people want to live their life.
Do you help at all? Do you play therapist at all when it comes to how to have these sensitive conversations?
I can't help myself. I cannot help myself, Kevin. Of course I do.
I would too.
Um, yeah, I can, consider the long-term implications of this. This is not only, for right now, but, for long term. Are you sure? Please don't do this unless you're ready. It is another thing because I do tell clients, are you sure? Are you sure you want to get divorced? Are you sure So yes, I can't help that.
Is it hard? Is it difficult for you to the emotional side of it?
I think I'm just equipped to handle emotions. I can empathize with my clients. I understand sometimes the pain because I've been divorced. I've been there, done that. I know, what it's like to have a blended family because I got remarried and my husband had a daughter and step kids. And so I've run the gamut. I can sympathize. And I've had, friends that's gone through it and family members have gone through it. And so I can empathize very well with individuals. And I know that hurt and that pain that you go through when you're having to face some of these tough issues.
I'm sure it makes you even better at your job because you have that kind of experience and understanding.
Yes, absolutely.
So, what are the most crucial elements that should be included in a pre or post nup?
One of the things is that they need to make sure the assets and the liabilities are disclosed. Know how you want to operate because you might want to have in this prenup agreement, you might want to be able to contribute or to an account that will become community property. Or you may down the road want to buy a house and say, this is going to be the house for the community. Or further down the road, we want to keep this and that separate, but we might want this little issue right here to be a community. So it's all about when you come to the attorney, knowing what it is that you want and what it is that you're trying to protect. Like what we talked about earlier, there are some things that a prenup agreement is not going to cover, and that's going to be those retirement benefits. So outside of the retirement benefits, you're pretty safe with provisions in your prenup agreement.
There's a term called full financial disclosure when negotiating these. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or is that something different?
Absolutely.
Okay. What factors might lead a couple to consider modifying an existing prenup or postnup? We briefly talked about that, but can you kind of elaborate on what would cause someone to go down that road?
Yes, typically what they find out that this is working, this is not working. And what they want to do is make some few little tweaks, down the road. It's not necessarily that they didn't understand what they were getting into, but life happens and people die and leave money, even though that would still be separate, but you have to make sure that even though that's a separate account or separate money, when you receive that from a relative that has passed on, that would under normal circumstance not be considered community money. But as soon as you put that money into a community account, it gets all commingled, and when it's commingled, it ends up being or looked at as community, and you may not want that. So it's about what you're trying to do at the time that you modify. It may be that what you were doing was not working. Like I had a situation where the parties were trying to do some business ventures and their prenup agreement was not working. So we had to make some tweaks to it and just do a postnuptial agreement and create a vehicle for them to be able to deal with the businesses that they were creating if in the event that they ended up divorcing.
Okay, interesting. So if somebody wants to come to you with to get a prenup or a postnup, what should they be? What should they have at the ready? What would you like them to have when they come in and sit down with you?
Life insurance policies, bank account information, boats, planes, trains, automobiles. You.
I have to disclose the train that I own? Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I didn't know that.
Bottom line, yes, everything needs to be disclosed, and bills. Don't leave off the bills.
Interesting.
Don't
Okay.
don't hide the bills. Those are very important. So when we deal with that, we've covered most of it. And also they should come in with a plan on how they feel like they're going to in the future manage the state, because sometimes you have one person that may be good at finances and the other person may not be as good, and that person may want to be in control of most of the money or some of the money or that type of thing. And just having something that says they should sit down once a month and give an accounting. That
Mhm.
might be something that you want to do. I don't know how many times that I've had situations where couples did not disclose assets or disclose certain things, and they find out, and it's like, oops, where did this come from, and why are we now having to deal with this? And oops are not good when you're dealing with a marriage.
Yeah. Yes. You know what? That should be the new that should be on a t-shirt. Oops is not good when you're talking about a marriage.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to ALP Corner, Family Law in the Heart of Houston with Allecia L. Pottinger. To connect with Allecia and her team, head to alplawfirm.com. And please like and subscribe to our channel. We love having you here. Allecia, I loved chatting with you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.